welcome to another Ask Todd segment. Today's segment I'm actually going to do sitting down at my computer and show you a little something in a slicer program. But the topic that we're addressing today is a question about how do you prevent or curtail the problems of ASA or ABS, lifting off the bed plate, curling. The other common question along with that is maybe poor layer adhesion you're struggling with. So we're going to address that, and I'm going to give you kind of a unique tip on how to prevent some of that. But the reason that ASA and ABS are so sensitive to that, it is very sensitive to the cooling process. It needs to cool very, very slowly. If it cools too quickly, what you're going to get is a curling. And also, if it cools too quickly, that's where it can affect the layer-to-layer adhesion. So one layer cools before the next one starts, and that's a problem. And that's why you print with, generally speaking, a much higher bed temperature. Also, why you should print with the cooling fans turned off or turned very, very low. And you want to use an enclosed printer where you can close the door and keep all that ambient heat inside. The closer you can get the ambient air temperature around the model to the bed temperature, the better results you're going to have. So I want to show you an example of a print. This was printed out of ASA, and a customer had brought us this and was struggling with it because, as you can see, with this on an FDM printer, I'm going to need a whole bunch of support built in right here. And they were actually having a problem of the print lifting off of the supports. So it was adhering okay to the bed, but after the supports were done and then the model was built from there on up, then that's when it started curling. So I asked them if they would give me an opportunity to use their file and play around with it and see if I couldn't get it to go right. So here is my bamboo slicer program, and you see that I've got the model here. I'm going with Coex ASA filament. I'm doing this on a P1S. Using an engineering plate. Now, if you're seeing this for the first time, this Coex ASA, and wonder how the heck did he do that, watch another video on YouTube where I show how to download Coex filament profiles directly into your bamboo slicer. But as we dig into this here, you'll see that I've made a lot of changes from the standard default settings of bamboo. Anything in orange, I'm going to have made a change from. So the quality, I really didn't do a whole lot. The strength, I built up the walls a little bit. Actually going to go to 7 walls. Increased my infill density because I want this to be pretty strong. But what I want to get into here is showing the supports. You can see I enabled supports. And that's going to build up, if you watch my mouse here, that's going to build up all around here. What the problem was is because this is so far removed from the bed, when it got to the top of the supports, this customer was having curling issues right in here. So what I did with that, I went to others, and in others, you've got some options for skirt. Now in bamboo, skirt defaults to 0 is where it's going to start. So your skirt height then of course would also be 0 because you don't have any skirt loops. So let's make sure that we're getting our terminology right. A skirt is different than a brim, significantly different. People think that they're one and the same. The brim attaches to the model and it gives a little bit more surface area to hold down. The skirt is a line of material that would print on the outside perimeter on the build plate. It's not attached to the model at all. It will usually be about a ½ inch, 3/4 of an inch away from the model. And back before we were all using bamboo, almost every slicer program defaulted to laying down a skirt. And at the end of the print, you'd peel it off and throw it away, and it really didn't do anything. We're going to use that skirt a little bit differently, though, because if I'm in this model and I take a look at this, actually, we'll come back here. I want to slice it first. So this is going to take just a little bit to slice it, and I apologize for that. I'm not using a real powerful computer, and I got a lot going on, but Here now it looks like the slice came out okay. And I want to show you, if I go to preview on this, you can see this model. Here's the support building up. Here's now the model. Now let's bounce back over here to prepare again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put skirt loops set to 2. So I'm giving myself 2 perimeters going around. And I'm going to make the skirt height 370 layers. Now why did I do that? Because when I looked at this before and when I first sliced it, I could see what layer height that transition was between the model and the support material. Now when I reslice this, you can see that skirt building up from the very bottom, set away from the model, and it's building it up, building it up. Now it's continuing, those supports are done at this point. And then when I get to 370 here, the skirt stops and I go ahead and I build the rest of the model. What I'm doing there with that little structure that I've built, any heat that's coming off the build plate and is being trapped in between that skirt wall or that little tent that we've created and the model itself, what the hope is that I'm keeping as much temperature and heat in there as I possibly can. So now if we come back over here and I show you what this looked like, again, here's the model. And here is that skirt that was printed. So when this was oriented on the bed, it looked about like that. And you can see that we kept some gap in there. And what it did is it kept that heat in, and that model printed nearly perfectly, which is exactly what the customer was looking for. So it's a very simple fix. Yes, it does use a little bit of extra material, but this thing, honestly, I mean, it probably weighs 10 grams at the most. I would sacrifice 10 grams of material every single time in order to make sure that I'm getting the good layer adhesion that I want, that I'm not getting separation from the model, that I'm not getting separation from the build plate. So when you're printing with ABS and ASA, you might want to experiment with that and see if that works for you, and I bet it will. So give it a try. It's very easy to use in bamboo, and I hope it works for you. Thanks for watching.